Now
on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
Well, good morning, everybody, and a happy Monday to one and all. Yes, for those of you who are like me and tend to be a little bit calendar challenged, it is Monday the 18th, which means we are 1 week out from Christmas. Hit the panic buttons, everybody. If you are unlike Julie Gunlock, who is so organized, she's done, and not done in the sense of I'm done. She's done, out and out, done with everything.
No, I'm going to enjoy this holiday season.
It's good. You know,
Relax.
something as you should, a well-deserved enjoyment of the holiday season. I'm Andrew Langer for Larry O'Connor here on O'Connor and Company. Of course, that lovely voice you hear is Julie Gunlock. In with me, my old friend Julie Gunlock, sharing pictures of the things that she has cooked. It is 6:08 on News Talk 105.9 WMAL. We are making sense of the news. We've got a great show coming up still. Next hour, we got Tyler O'Neill from the Daily Signal also talking about this LGBTQIA agenda and the Southern Poverty Law Center. Lots of acronyms this morning. The SPLC talking about the LGBTQIA on the DL here on WMAL. Joe DeGeneva is joining us in the 7 a.m. hour. He's a legal analyst. You hear him every Monday here. We got the Fairfax County GOP Chairman Steve Knotts talking about members of the Fairfax County School Board getting sworn in on porn, which is just crazy. And then in the 8 a.m. hour, we're going to talk about the Washington Commanders game yesterday against the Rams with Trevor Maddich. So please join us for all of the show today. But starting here, so last week, Julie, you were not here when the press conference happened, the Hunter Biden press conference. Patrice and I talked about it quite a bit on Friday. And we said, I made this statement that, Hunter Biden's lawyers, the president's lawyers, have got to be just sitting here saying Hunter Biden needs to talk. Actually, I say this, that they should be saying that Hunter Biden needs to talk less. But I can't imagine that Hunter Biden did that press conference on Friday without some conversation with his father. Your thoughts here, Julie?
Yeah, it's outrageous. It's audacious. And, I mean, it just shows what a privileged spoiled brat Hunter Biden is.
Right.
But this does put his father in a mess. And look, and Hunter Biden's been putting his father in a mess and Joe Biden's no victim here.
Joe Biden has three jobs. Yeah. 3 jobs, right? One is to engage in government. 2 is to make boatloads of money, on his own name. And number 3 is to bail his son out of major messes that he gets himself into.
Yeah. And this is yet another bailing out. But it really does. I mean, this is Banana Republic stuff. I think you said it this morning. Like, the son of the dictator doesn't, have to
Presidente's son. He is denying
yes.
the subpoena here.
Yeah, and it's a slap in the face to Congress. It's a slap in the face to his father, really. And again, I don't think Joe Biden's the victim here, but it really does put his father in an awkward situation.
His father is on the record as saying if you defy a congressional subpoena, you should be arrested. Right. So, this is, again, but as we all know, if Democrats didn't have double standards, they wouldn't have any standards at all. But who's agreeing with you and me, Julie, is Jen Psaki, the former White House spokesman, also fellow William and Mary alum. Here's Jen Psaki yesterday on the TV talking about this. Let's play cut 3.
Look, I think if you're sitting in the White House right now, you're like, please, Hunter Biden, we know your dad loves you. Please stop talking in public. This is not helpful to any of them for him to be out there. But at the same time, the president loves his son. That takes precedent over anything else. That is appealing. I'm thinking of the woman in your focus group who talked about family. He loves his son. He loves his family. He's worried about his mental health.
Okay, there's a couple things that are interesting. First of all, the laughter. Isn't this all so funny? It's just Hunter Biden being a bad boy again. Okay, that drives me crazy. But also, notice what she said. She said, Hunter Biden, we know your dad loves you. Please stop talking in public.
Yeah.
In other words, I don't care what you do. You can snort cocaine off, your dad's desk, okay, the presidential desk. I don't care. It's the public thing that bothers Jen Psaki and the Democrats. It's don't publicly. I mean, God, go ahead and do your crazy stuff behind the scenes, but please don't embarrass your father. Don't do it publicly, because we don't want those rubes in the public actually knowing just how dysfunctional this Biden family is, right?
By the way,
and also, this whole love of, Biden, he loves his dad. He's such a family man. This is what they don't like. They don't like that it might break this, sort of narrative that Biden's this great guy and this family man. He wasn't a great dad, and he didn't raise a great family.
Right. And, it's interesting to me because, anyway, we got this double standard that isn't working. I want to come back at some point in time. I need to share with you my theory about how we're all missing the boat on this art scam, the Hunter Biden art scam. But we'll come back to that in a minute. As I said, Joe Biden said subpoena defiers should be charged. Will his DOJ arrest Hunter Biden? President Joe Biden said in October 2021, so while he was president of the United States, that individuals who defy subpoenas from the January 6th House Senate-elect Committee should be prosecuted, and the DOJ indicted Steve Bannon for doing so in November of 2021. Legal experts said the president said could be, but for various reasons may not be, likewise prosecuted by the Biden Justice Department. You want to lay odds? Julie, you want to lay odds as to whether or not Hunter Biden will be charged or prosecuted for defying the congressional subpoena? I mean, no. I certainly. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm not going to lay odds because we know exactly what's going to happen.
Right. There is nothing that's going to be nothing that's going to be happening here. We've got this Philip Holloway, who's a criminal defense attorney, told the Daily Caller News Foundation that the law must be applied equally or it has no meaning. Well, of course, that's very true. Hunter Biden needs to be held to the same standard as other recent people who have thumbed their noses at congressional subpoenas. Do you ever watch the TV show Billions?
No.
We were huge fans of that show. And there was a character who he was being prosecuted by the Southern District of New York, and in a conference between him and the prosecutors from the Southern District, he whispers into his attorney's ear, and his attorney says, "My client does not recognize your authority in this prosecution," which is essentially what we're talking about here, and that's the other part of this. So I come back to, and I tease this to you. We know the president is intimately involved with this, right? The two of them talk all the time. It would defy logic for the president not to talk about this. So as we go through this question of what to do about Eric Swalwell, right? Because Eric Swalwell is the member of Congress who arranged for this press conference as Hunter Biden was defying this legally issued subpoena. The question then becomes what's happening at the White House in terms of coordination. And I don't know what the legal ramifications are. Right? The legal ramifications for a president or a White House to be directing the president's son to defy a congressional subpoena in what is essentially an investigation into possible corruption for the impeachment of the president of the United States, that to me would be an impeachable offense. I would think. Yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
No,
Julie.
I agree. It's so interesting, Andrew, and we can ask Joe DeGeneva about that.
Yes.
But you're right. I mean, Hunter Biden's own lawyer stood next to him while he was engaging in criminal behavior. So, I mean, it's remarkable, the display there, the defiance. And again, the privilege on display. The president's son is going to get away with this because he's the president's son. And we know Merrick Garland is not going to do this. I do hope that the House recommends this to the Department of Justice. I hope that there is action so that we can have it on record that the Department of Justice did not actually pursue charges. That would be great. I don't know if the House will do it. We've seen them not act in the past. So
I would hope under the new leadership in the House that they would go down that road. We will continue in just a moment, but first it's 5:15 a.m. WMAL, 6:15 a.m. WMAL traffic and weather every 10 minutes, first on the fives. Here is Jamie Whitten in the Hadid Carpet Cleaning Traffic Center. Now, Julie, I've said this before on the air. I've been a fan of Jonathan Turley's since the early 90s when I heard him speak on abuse of executive branch authority, which is something that I agree with him is a great danger to American society. So I always love hearing him talk about what's going on in the legal world, the criminal legal world. Mm-hmm. He was on TV over the weekend, Jonathan Turley. actually, this is what he told Newsweek. Hunter Biden's legal team put him in greater peril when the president's son defied a subpoena. Turley told Newsweek via email on Sunday that, quote, the Biden team could not have put their client in greater peril with the stunt in front of Congress. They eradicated any plausible defense in this flagrant contempt of Congress. It is not an easy cat to walk backwards unless Congress gives Hunter another opportunity to testify. The most they can hope for is a type of legal mulligan. They would be wise to immediately offer to testify as specified by the House committees. They're not going to do that, though, Julie, right? Because the one thing that they are afraid of, the one thing that they want to avoid, now that they've had to pivot and change their narrative from the president was never involved in his son's business dealings, to the president, never did this, to the president was never financially involved. What they don't want is for Hunter Biden to have to go on the record and either answer the question or refuse to answer the question. Hunter Biden, in your emails and text messages, you refer to somebody as the big guy. Save 10% for the big guy. Who is the big guy? Right? That's a very simple, straightforward. It's not a yes or no question. It is, who is this person? He doesn't want to answer this question. That's why he's not testifying. Your thoughts here?
It is. I think what Hunter Biden did shows not only, his contempt for the process, it shows the Biden family's contempt for any authority and how they view themselves really as this sort of, family that's above the law. I think that this is, I think Turley's right that if Congress wants to sort of give him another chance, maybe that will stop this being referred to the Department of Justice, but I don't think so. I think that this is, again, I hope Comer refers this to the Department of Justice. I just don't think that this can be allowed. And I am really curious what they can do about Swalwell, who is just such a greasy member of Congress to arrange this. That was the Senate swamp. That is reserved for members. So it had to be a member involved in this. And Swalwell giving Hunter Biden that space, that place I think there should be some consequences for him as well.
By the way, I'll say it once again, Eric Swalwell with a name straight out of Dickens, to say the least. This is not the first time, right? This issue of the Biden family playing on Joe Biden's name to make money, this has been going on for decades. So we got this story, and we're going to also, by the way, we're going to talk to Joe DeGeneva in just under an hour. We're going to ask him about this story too. That James Biden was implicated, never charged, never convicted, but at least implicated in a bribery scandal in D.C. In the 1990s. At the very least, somebody named Richard Scruggs, who was a trial attorney, hired James and Sarah Biden's D.C. consulting firm, paid $100,000 in the late 1990s to James Biden and Sarah Biden's D.C. consulting firm. Listen, I don't know what James Biden's credentials were before his brother became a senator, but I do know that he was trading on his name. He was implicated in all of this. By the way, at some point, I also need to get your impression of this feud between On The View and taking on Ana Navarro. Did you hear about this? Ana Navarro going after Meghan McCain, trading on her parents' name.
Gross.
We'll talk about that later on. Listen, we've got so much more to get to. Right now, it's 6:22 here on WMAL. I get immediately suspicious, Julie Gunlock, when I hear stories like the president's motorcade, one of the cars in the president's motorcade gets hit, slammed into by another car with the president at the motorcade, and there's no details of the story. That immediately marks me if there's something fundamentally wrong here. Here's a story in case you missed it. Last night or yesterday afternoon, a sedan hit a Secret Service SUV while the president's motorcade was at near a restaurant, also near the president's campaign headquarters in Wilmington, Delaware. The sedan then tried to continue into a closed-off intersection before Secret Service personnel surrounded the vehicle with weapons drawn and instructed the driver to put his hands up. I mean, Julie, this is, again, very, very strange here that we don't have any details about the driver and about what happened.
Yeah, of course not. You know what? Yeah. Why? Because D.C. is out of control. The crime is out of control. Now, I don't know the motivation. If this was some, drunk person or someone angry about, I don't know. Because again, there's very few details.
Yes.
Aside from it happening, but but, we always say the Democrats will finally do something about the crime when it starts to affect them. Here's a case of it affecting the president.
Maybe it will. Listen, we got so much more to get to here on the show. Tyler O'Neill joining us in the next hour. Joe DeGeneva in the 7 a.m. hour. This is the O'Connor and Company show on WMAL. It is 6:30 a.m.
WMAL-FM, Woodbridge, Washington, a Cumulus media station.
Making sense of the news.
News Talk 105.9.
News now.
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
Good morning, everyone. This is O'Connor and Company here on WMAL. I am Andrew Langer in for Larry O'Connor today, sitting with Julie Cunliffe. Good morning, Julie.
Good morning.
It is 6:37 on News Talk 105.9 WMAL. We are making sense of the news. It is, of course, Monday, December 18th. You have 1 week left, less than 1 week left before Christmas. 1 week from today. You'll be waking up and opening up presents. We got a great show coming up. We got Joe DeGeneva in the next hour. Fairfax County GOP Chairman Steve Knotts. Trevor Mattich to talk about the Commanders game yesterday. Joining us right now is Tyler O'Neill, is the managing editor of the Daily Signal and author of Making Hate Pay, The Corruption of the Southern Poverty Law Center. Listen, Tyler, there are a lot of things going on in the news right now. We just were talking about what's happening in Fairfax County with members of their school board being sworn in on a stack of porn. But we've got this other story out of the federal government about the gender police holding people accountable if they misgender people. We know that the feds are working hand in glove with the SPLC. Let's talk about the gaslighting of America.
Yeah. Thanks, Andrew. It really is the gaslighting of America. I mean, I wrote the SPLC released a report last week opposing and demonizing opposition to transgender orthodoxy as pseudoscience, calling it a tool of white supremacy and theocracy. They essentially threw everything out of the book of the left against anyone who dares to criticize the sterilization and the stunting of growth and, just the horrific ways that we are treating people who claim to identify as the opposite, as the gender opposite their sex. And meanwhile, this is something that people in Europe have been pushing against. They've been starting to say, look, we've been too fast to put kids on these fast tracks to hormones, to surgery. Like, let's reconsider this. Let's have a watchful waiting approach. And the U.S. has been full steam ahead, and the SPLC is now going after all the doctors. And I mean, many of these doctors who have been opposing, who have come out against what's euphemistically called gender-affirming care, used to be supporters of it. But the SPLC says, no, this is all evil. This is all based in hate. And of course, as I wrote in my book, this is the SPLC's MO. But I think this report is the worst thing about this report is that it's going to be used by the legacy media, by especially the federal government. Biden's met with the SPLC. He's had them at the White House at least 11 times, according to White House records. And this is a far left smear factory that has put mainstream conservative and Christians on a hate map with chapters of the Ku Klux Klan that's led to a terrorist attack.
That's right. Tell us a little bit about that, Tyler. I actually wanted to ask you about that, the attack on the Family Research Council.
Yeah, thanks, Julie. It's back in 2012, and it kind of went a little bit under the radar, which really surprises me. There was a man who took a semi-automatic pistol and a bag of Chick-fil-A chicken sandwiches. And I mean, this was summer of 2012, so this was the height of the Chick-fil hate campaign, where Chick-fil-A was being demonized for funding conservative groups. And this guy came into the Family Research Council, and he later told the FBI his plan was to shoot everyone in FRC and smear a Chick-fil-A sandwich in the faces of his victims. And thank God for Leo Johnson, who's a brave security guard who wrestled the man to the floor And you can still see the bullet holes in the Family Research Council's offices where this man opened fire. But he wounded, this terrorist wounded the security guard in a wound that's going to cause him problems for life. But thankfully, due to the heroism of Leo Johnson, he was able to get the terrorist to the floor until police arrived so that he could not carry out his horrible plan.
And this was because of the Family Research Council being listed on SPLC's list. I mean, there was a direct connection there that this guy was sort of radicalized because of the Southern Poverty Law Center.
Yeah, he told the FBI that he found the Family Research Council because of the hate map. And I mean, by the way, this hate map, it's a weapon. It's a fundraising tool, but it's also a weapon to silence the SPLC's opponents. And it's kind of brilliant. And I mean, I say brilliant in a disgusting, disturbing way.
Sure.
But he, Morris Dees, the co-founder of the SPLC, who, by the way, was fired in 2019 through a racial discrimination and sexual harassment scandal that should still have delegitimized the SPLC today, but apparently everyone on the left seems to forget about this, just like they forget about the FRC shooting. But he was a master fundraiser, and he started realizing that if he sued KKK groups into bankruptcy, which of course, that was a good thing, the KKK is evil.
Sure.
But he sued them into bankruptcy, and that was super easy because this was the 1980s, and the KKK was a paper tiger, and courts were more than happy to go after them. And this led the SPLC away from its original mission, which was actually helping poor people in the South. He realized that he could make all this money by going to donors and saying, "Oh, I'm suing the Grand Dragons."
Right.
And then eventually he ran out of Grand Dragons to conquer. And so he started going after more and more mainstream, more and more conservative organizations. And now it's a weapon that the left can use to demonize as Biden says, MAGA extremists, but as also domestic terrorists. I mean, we saw the attack on concerned parents in 2021, and the SPLC added parental rights groups to the hate map earlier this year.
Right. When your group solves a problem, then you have to find a new enemy to sort of target in order to raise your money and confirm your existence. By the way, this is how in America today we've pivoted to being more divided than ever, because you have folks who make huge amounts of money keeping Americans divided. Tyler O'Neill, we have to leave it there. Thank you so very much for joining us today.
Hey, my pleasure.
That's Tyler O'Neill. He's the managing editor of the Daily Signal, the author of Making Hate Pay, The Corruption of the Southern Poverty Law Center. Go and check that out. All great stuff. We've got more coming up. It's 6:44 on WMAL. Well, I am Andrew Langer in for Larry O'Connor. This is O'Connor and Company. And Julie Gunlock, so when you were in middle school, how early did you get up for middle school? Do you remember?
Oh, I mean, as late as possible. I mean, we had to be at school by 8. That was
got it.
That was
your start time. I know for me it was very, very early, and of course our middle school was attached to our high school. I was still going to school when they called it a junior high, so it was all the same building, so it was all the same start time. And I want to say we started at like 7:15 in the morning. Maybe it was 7:30. I don't know. It was early. It was early stuff. But the point is, we got this this story. Fairfax County considers later start time for middle schoolers, which again, it's a situation. They are saying over the last 10 years, we've heard from parents and students and staff in the middle school that they need that time to get up and get their brains going before they come into school and are ready to learn. This is Melanie Marin, a school board member, told WTOP. Here's the thing, right? We are seeing this. This is yet to me another example of people trying to pinpoint why our education system is failing on things other than bad teaching and bad academic policies. Now they want to blame it on starts. Oh, the kids' brains aren't up and early. They get up and they get in the habit of getting up early. Get them off their video games. Get them off their phones at night. Get them to bed at a decent time. Their brains are going to be working when they get to school at 7:30 in the morning. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I will tell you that my kids, their start time is 8 a.m.
Yeah.
And I personally feel like 7:30 is a little brutal. But the problem is changing this for parents who have to be to work early,
right,
or who've gotten used to this time. I agree with you that I think it's so ridiculous how they are struggling to come up with a new excuse, every quarter for this is why our, our ratings are so low, or why testing is so bad. Oh, it's because of the start of, no, actually, why don't you guys actually, cut it out with the politics in the classroom and actually teach these kids things. You could try that, teaching them things.
I will say this much. So in October 2014, the school board voted to have high schoolers start classes at 8 a.m. or later for the 2015-2016 academic year. After that change, the middle school start times moved up to 7:30. Here's the thing that gets me, right?
Moved up to 7:30.
They moved up,
yeah.
So I think what happened is that they switched them around, because I always thought, right, when we grew up, and in most school districts now, or most school districts, I always thought the way it is high school starts the earliest, middle school starts next if it's a separate building, and then elementary schools start even later, which, by the way, gives you your staggered bus time, so you can reuse the same buses and bus routes over and over again. But I guess in Fairfax County, they decided to flip it because, again, right, we've heard this before. The young people's brains, they need time to wake up in the morning, and there's this and that. Which, by the way, I also want to add, when you move school start times in high school later and later, kids' school activities get all kinds of messed up in the afternoon.
That's true. Yeah.
Whether it's, I can say this. Yes, my kids were theater kids, so they were doing rehearsals until all hours, and then they get home and they do homework. I remember doing. I know not to look at it today, but I ran track in high school. You're going to look at me and you're going to say, "No, Andrew, you didn't run track. You were a shot putter. You're built like a shot putter." No, I ran the 400 meters. But right, you go away to meets. You're getting away late. I mean, it's a whole thing. But the point in the end is, right, Julie, you cannot mask poor academic performance by saying it has to do with start times. You have to focus on the fundamentals, don't you?
You do. But again, I can't say I'm totally opposed to this. I think I am opposed to it starting later than 8. I do think a start time of 7:30 is very early. I don't have a problem moving it to 8. I think beyond 8, because they say 8 a.m. or later, right. I think that really interferes with parents who need to, drop your kids off and then come home and get ready and go to work, particularly for people who have to be in person at work.
Yes.
So yes, I think that's a little bit ridiculous.
No, I agree with you. And I'm sorry. I also am going to make a blanket statement. No more middle school starting before high school. High school starts first. I'm sorry. Listen, call me old-fashioned. I'm going to get all the hate mail. No, something. We're going to get hate mail from the kids who are going to call me a boomer.
Exactly.
All right, boomer. Okay, boomer. High school starts first, then middle school, then elementary school, and everybody get into school in time so the parents can get off to work. That's the way it should be. It's 6:53 here on WMAL.